So if you've been a follower of mine for a while, you've probably seen me say in other videos or in lives that by minimizing one illness, by pretending that it doesn't matter, that it is no big deal, we would begin minimizing all illnesses. And that the consequences of doing that would be awful. I've been saying that for 4.5 years. And that most people would scoff. But no, by minimizing COVID, by pretending like it isn't a neurotropic vascular illness that causes significant damage every time you get it, by insisting that people go back to school and work even when they are sick, by minimizing masking, by minimizing taking any mitigation against spreading disease, we have made it okay for people to spread all diseases. And today we're reaping what we sow. Over the last week, I have gotten school closure notifications from 10 different states, including multiple school districts in Texas, one of which had 650 of their 3,000 students out sick in one day. Several schools in Ohio, Vermont, Indiana, in addition to South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma, and Wisconsin. I can honestly state, as someone who is 40, I cannot tell you of a single time in my entire time in elementary school through graduate school where any school district, at least that I was aware of, was so sick that they had to close the entire school outside of the last 5 years because of COVID. The only thing that comes remotely close is that in the fall of 2003, there was enough flu spreading at my college campus that they let students defer their exams if they were sick, but they still didn't cancel school. So I will say again, this is not fucking normal. We need to stop pretending like it is. Why is this happening? I think a big contributing factor is that because we ignore all diseases, many of us have had COVID far too many times, especially school-age kids, and their immune systems never get a chance to recover. Because remember, your immune system is deregulated for 8 to 12 months after every single infection. And that's if you get better. Some people with long COVID don't ever get better. But if you're getting COVID more than once a year, you also are not giving your immune system a chance to recover, which means that you are more vulnerable to RSV, to the flu, to another round of COVID, to any of the myriad of things that are spreading. The second factor is because we just don't care about dealing with diseases anymore, we're sending our kids to school sick because our parents cannot take time off work, and our kids are getting threatened with truancy and arrests if they keep missing school because they're sick. This is not fucking normal. In addition to our usual winter things like the flu, COVID, and RSV, norovirus is spreading around school. Something that we used to only see in cruise ships is spreading like wildfire. That shit is awful. Whooping cough cases are rising, including one pediatric death in Washington. The cases are up in other places too, like Colorado. The flu is also kicking our ass this year. And I'll talk about the bird flu concerns in a little bit. That's a separate kettle of fish. But just the regular flu is going bananas this year because we spent so long discounting vaccines that not many people got the flu shot this year. Here is the influenza-like illness report for outpatient respiratory. That red line, is this season. All of the other lines are every other season since 2020. Notice that the red line is higher than any other previous season, except for this blue line. The blue line is 2019-2020. Nationwide, the positivity rate for flu tests is coming back at over 30%. So 1 in 3 people who test for the flu come back for the flu. But some places are even worse than that. Philadelphia, for example, has climbed to over 30%. South Carolina is far and away the winner for hospitalizations because of influenza-like illness. So none of that is good. But in addition to the whooping cough being a problem because we're not vaccinating people, there's a measles outbreak in Texas, another one in Washington, several in Canada. And let me be clear about why that is bad. Thanks to people like RFK Jr. and their tirade against vaccines, the vaccination rate for US kindergartners has dropped below the threshold necessary to prevent community spread. So as Dr. Murray points out, measles, being one of the most infectious diseases known on the planet, can rip through an unvaccinated population like dry tinder. In a completely unvaccinated population, every measles case is expected to infect up to 15 other people. So the 9 cases they detected in Canada could mean 135 more cases in 2 weeks. When you've reached that 95% threshold for vaccination, those 9 people might produce 4 other cases, mostly in people who are either undervaccinated or too young to be vaccinated, or do not have immune systems that produce sufficient antibodies, hence why the level is so high. It's a team sport, but vaccines are a team sport, and every single person is a link in chain armor. Some of those links are not as strong as others, but when we work together, we can protect everybody. But too many people have opted out of the herd and are deciding to only protect themselves, or just saying, hey, I want to rely on the herd without participating in it at all. Well, I'm sorry, fuck you, that's not how it works. One of the few things that the US does not vaccinate for that most of the rest of the world does is tuberculosis, because for a long time we didn't have to, until we let COVID run rampant through everyone's immune systems. And a lot of latent TB, aka TB that was not actively infectious, suddenly became infectious. Kansas currently has the largest outbreak of the last century. And yes, you heard that right. They have at least 146 cases and 2 deaths. There have been cases in Michigan, California, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. And in the last 6 months, there have been reported cases in Georgia, Minnesota, North Carolina, Alabama, Idaho, and Texas. And it doesn't help that the CDC is no longer really talking about public health at all. And their reporting on the Kansas outbreak is zero. They're quiet because our Cheeto-in-chief has refused to allow public health to speak publicly. We pay for all that data, by the way. That's what our taxes pay for. So it's not his to muzzle in the first place. But I digress. To bring us back full circle about why ignoring diseases is a terrible life choice, on both the front of we don't have people take disease seriously anymore, and all of this could be prevented. The most egregious of the TB cases to me is the one in Pennsylvania, where a child was diagnosed, was told they could not go to school because they were infectious, and they went to school anyways. So it's not just they didn't go to the doctor and they could pretend like they didn't have knowledge. No, they knew. They were told to their face, and they ignored it anyway. And bringing it back to the first point, seeing reactivations of latent infections, like tuberculosis, is in fact a sign of immunocompromise, and is why, since letting COVID rip, we are seeing more cases of tuberculosis, like a lot more, along with a myriad of other opportunistic infections. So yes, I stand by what I said. One, that COVID does significant damage to your immune system, and having it on a population-wide scale is leading to a rise of all other illnesses. And that by public health dismissing and discounting this one particular illness, they have now led to all of us to dismiss and discount all illnesses. So people don't stay home sick. They don't stay home from school sick. We give each other germs all the time, and we are killing people. It literally makes my blood boil. Stay home if you're fucking sick. You are a threat to others. Behave as such. If you have to be around other people, wear a fucking mask. No one wants your tuberculosis, your measles, your mumps, your rubella, your whooping cough, your flu, your cold, your COVID, your RSV. None of it is meant to be shared. We need to start behaving like we give a shit about our ongoing existence as a species, because right now it feels like we really don't. And remember, folks, vaccinations are a team sport, and your participation really matters. So make sure you're up to date. Get your antibodies checked if you are over the age of 35 to make sure you still are an active participant, because too many other people are not participating. Sorry, this is a long one, but this makes me so very angry because it's utterly preventable, and we're only here because of our sheer willful ignorance.